Hello, welcome to GB News. I'm Darren Grimes and I'm joined by Ulster's finest, Ian Paisley. Ian, thank you very much for your time today.
Finished now. That's enough for me, so thanks very much.
We're talking here at ARC about responsible citizens. Do you reckon actually the British people have lost that what we would describe as autonomous, responsible citizenry that you and your party talk about quite often?
Well, I think Britain has got to the point where it feels it's post-Christian and it feels that it no longer has a sure foundation. This conference is getting people back to that very, very basic point. There's something very certain about life. One of them talked about the certainty of death, one of the speakers, but the certainty of choosing to live a great life to that point. And those foundations are, of course, found, I believe, as a Christian, in Jesus Christ, but they're also found in the ethos of what flows from that. So you don't have to be a Christian to believe in having a really good society and having really strong fundamental points of faith in that society and building a Christian and a conservative society hand in glove. And this is unabashed, uncompromising, solid conservatism at its root, but also solid Christian ethos at its root. And that's very, very encouraging.
Do you think actually we're hearing a lot about the story that we tell? Do you think the story that we tell about our own nation is one said enough? Do we actually teach the next generation about all the good that Britain has done in the world? And secondly, do you think there's anything other than attempts to denigrate and destroy the good parts of British history?
Yeah. We're only responsible for the time that we're in and for hopefully handing something better to the next generation. We're not responsible for what's been given to us in the sense of all of the baggage of history. We are responsible, however, about learning from it and learning from the mistakes. And seeing the 12th, 15th, 16th century through 21st century eyes is a mistake. We've got to learn from it, build on it, and make things better and improve from it. And also keep those things that are really positive and powerful and our fundamentals and our golden thread through the ages. And I think if we can do that, then we really do it. But let's get away from this nonsense of discarding and dashing and downing the past and denigrating the past. Let's actually honour it and accept that there's great things have come from it. And even the woke monuments out there have feet of clay. They probably don't know it, but they have feet of clay too, and they've made lots of mistakes. But I think we can learn from that also and recognise that, well, if we've all got feet of clay, let's learn from the positive stuff.
How did you feel when you saw the scenes in London over recent weeks, where you've got hundreds of thousands of people flying Palestinian flags on the streets of London, shouting really quite grotesque things, it has to be said? Do you worry about social cohesion?
I worry about social cohesion, yes, you're absolutely right, I worry about that. I also worry about the fact that you can't say difficult things anymore. Like, for example, Israel's a democracy. Some people will not hear that and they'll attack you for saying it. Like, for example, Israel has the right to defend themselves when they've been attacked. That's now a difficult thing to say. It shouldn't be. We should be able to say difficult things to each other. I, as a person who is very sympathetic and empathetic towards the Israelis, should also be able to say to my Israeli friends, you've got to treat your Palestinian neighbours with respect and with love also. These are difficult things we've got to learn to say to each other. And if we don't do that, we're going to be in a very one-sided, one-dimensional, boring society that then becomes frightened of having a viewpoint. And the one thing that has made this country great is that it's never been frightened of having a viewpoint that is even at times difficult. So let's also challenge and call out that hate speak. People who call for and celebrate the murder of Israeli people or of any people, they should be ashamed of themselves. Absolutely. And the police should be taking action against them.
Now, in your brief as with the DUP, DCMS, I wonder, have you any thoughts and reflections on the BBC's coverage of the Israel-Gaza Hamas conflict, where actually they refuse to call Hamas terrorists, despite them being a prescribed terrorist organisation? I imagine you've had your fair share of run-ins with the BBC over its definition of terrorism, dare I say.
I have a lot of run-ins with the BBC, and as you will know, working in the media, there's some great people out there in that organisation who are probably equally as aghast at what's happening. But the old world media is dying. And it's dying because organisations like this are challenging it and saying we won't be afraid to say it as it is and call it as it is. Look at the huge errors that the BBC perpetrated, not being able to call Hamas terrorist murderers, trying to almost, before the bomb exploded, blame the Israelis for a self-propelled rocket that the Hamas launched on their own hospital, or on a hospital in Gaza, I should say. I mean, that's appalling that they contributed to that confusion and mismessaging and deliberate lying about what was actually going on. So I do despair at times for what the BBC are doing, and if they're more honest, they'll get more viewers. But that's opportunity for channels like this.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, especially when they wax lyrical about disinformation and fake news, yet they were one of the biggest proponents of it at the start of this war.
And they perpetuated all the stuff about Nigel, one of your great commentators on this channel, perpetuated and gave platforms to people who told lies, blatant lies about him, and they didn't platform those people whenever they had to apologise.
Yeah.
They forgot about that Newsday.
Now, I must ask you about Northern Ireland. Now, Steve Baker, Minister in His Majesty's government, he was talking about a border poll. Now, he said that actually he thinks Brexit should have been a supermajority, so you would have had to have achieved over 60% in order for it to have actually got through. Now, he was talking about that in the context of Northern Ireland and the reunification, as they put it, of the island of Ireland. Now, does it worry you when a government minister in a Conservative government is talking about these sort of things, but also saying that we shouldn't have done Brexit without some kind of supermajority? Is that especially democratic?
Stephen is certainly doing a lot of cathartic re-examination.
He is.
All I would say, is, let's be clear about, there isn't going to be a United Ireland in my lifetime. Government, and indeed in my grandchildren's lifetime either, government has got to dig in on that point and say this is the most successful union. They must be proactive promoting this most successful union culturally, economically and socially and politically, and telling people why. I see no proaction by the government on selling the benefits of the union. Instead I hear this defeatist thing, well, if there's going to be a referendum on the future of Northern Ireland's place in the union, it must be in these terms. And I actually do agree with the point. Learning from previous referenda, having a solid majority going forward would make it a much easier recipe. And that's what happened in the first Scottish referenda way back in the 70s. And it's what actually one of the leaders of nationalism, Seamus Mallon, said should happen in a future referendum. It should be a solid majority. But there's no point getting into the discussion if you're proactively selling the case that the union's brilliant. So I would far rather Steve got into that. The government put resource behind that and marketed that point of view.
We'll be starting in the next couple of minutes. Please make your way through and take your seats. Thank you.
What would be your takeaway from this conference that you wish actually policymakers in His Majesty's government would actually take notice of? What would you like to see more of?
Be unashamed ourselves. There's nothing wrong with having a Christian ethos and a Christian basis in a society. And indeed to be positive and proactive about that. These are really powerful positive messages for our young people in particular, to telling them that they're not defeated, that they have a brilliant life ahead of them, that they are the change makers, and if they have a sound foundation to go forward to be change makers for the society, the world is their oyster and the horizon keeps lifting. So I want young people in particular to go away knowing that they can change the future in a positive way and be unashamed about what they believe in.
And that's why he's Ulsterman's best, I tell you that. Ian Paisley, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.